If you're a designer or a creative person, I'm sure you've had that feeling at some stage where you kind of feel lost in a project and you don't really know where you're going. Or sometimes you're asked to work on a different type of project, something that you haven't ever worked on before, and you may even not really know where to start. I think having a clear design process, something that you can apply to any of your projects to help you to work your way through problems, to give direction to what you're working on, and also help you to work around these blocks is probably one of the most useful tools you can have as a designer or a creative. And in this video, what I want to do is explain the three main phases that I go through in my design process and talk about why I do them the way that I do. Hopefully this might get you thinking a bit differently about your own design and creative process, and maybe give you something that you can apply in your own projects. I've been working as a designer for over 25 years now, and I've tried a lot of different processes. And one of the main things I've learned is that there's no one way of doing things that works for everyone. You've just got to try to find something that works for you. And I think it's important to also say up front that my process, I'm not claiming to be something completely different or unique from anything that anyone else does. You'll often see people in different creative fields using similar processes or similar steps, but calling them different things. The process that I use, the way that I think about it, and the names that I call the different phases is just something that works for me. The process that I've developed and that I apply to all of my projects goes through three key phases that I call ask, shape, and make. No matter what the project is that I'm working on, whether it's designing a piece of furniture or even a new city or a piece of artwork, it always goes through these three phases. Obviously, there'll be smaller additional steps that'll be added in depending on what the project is, but these three core phases always stay the same. So I just wanted to put this together as, I guess, an introductory video to give an overview of those three basic phases, the ask, shape, and make. And then I'll follow up with additional videos which will go into each one of those phases in more detail and give specific project examples. I think the last video I did, I was trying to keep to about 5 minutes and it ended up going for about 20. So I just wanted to avoid that happening again. As a bit of a background, I work as an urban designer. And what this means is that I'm continually working on projects of different types and scale. So for me, it's really important to have a process which is flexible enough that it can be adapted. It gives you something that gives you enough structure to be able to work your way through problems and different projects, but at the same time is flexible enough to be able to be adapted as required. I think the other point to note, or that I want to make here, is that if you look into suggestions or research around design thinking or creative thinking, you'll often find that they use words like empathize and ideation and iteration and prototyping and things like that, which sound really technical. And what I wanted to do is have a process where I use wording which was more plain speak, so that when I'm explaining it to people, it's easier for them to understand, but also really importantly to remember. Again, you can add in smaller steps under these three basic phases however you like. And as I said before, the most important thing is to come up with a process or a structure that works for you and for your projects. But I do think it's important to try to keep it as simple as possible. So when I'm talking to people about the three basic steps that I go through, the ask, shape, and the make, I explain them as being the why, the how, and the what of the design and creative process. The ask is about finding the why to a project. It's about questioning the brief and asking the right questions. In short, it's about trying to work out what the real problem is that you're trying to solve before you start jumping in and trying to find the answers. I've seen endless projects where designers or creatives have been given a brief and they just jump straight in and start to try to work out what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. Often, one of the most valuable things you can do as a designer or creative is to actually question the brief, to help to work out what the real problem is that you're trying to solve, and to clarify the purpose of the project. Going through this process can not only do that to help clarify the purpose of the project, but it can also change the direction and the outcome of a project altogether. So that first phase, the ask, is about establishing the why, working out the real problems and purpose of a project. And in the second phase, the shape, it's about working out how we're going to approach solving that problem. It's important to note that it's not about coming up with specific end solutions at this stage. It's more about exploring broader ideas and opportunities. It's about trying to figure out the guiding principles and the overall approach that you're going to take to solving that problem. In my experience, this is also a really important part of the design and creative process because it gives people a chance to get excited about and think about ideas and opportunities that they may not have considered before. And it also is a point where everyone can consider and agree and sign off on the broader principles and approach that you're going to take before you spend time trying to work out the detailed end solutions. So after you've established the why or the real purpose for the project, and then you've moved into shaping the vision for how you're going to approach it, the third phase I call make. And in the make phase, this is where you start to generate your specific design solutions or options to the problems that you're trying to solve. It's where you start to come up with your designs and test them and refine them, and you work out what you're going to do to deliver the project to make it happen. I guess for many people, this make phase is probably what they actually think of as being the design and creative process. But I would argue if you don't do those other two phases properly, you're kind of wasting your time. I think a lot of designers and creative people make the mistake that they try to jump straight into designing things and coming up with the answers. But if you don't establish that why or the real purpose for the project properly, and you don't explore those broader ideas and opportunities that you may not have thought of before, then in the end, you're not going to come up with the best design outcomes. As I said at the start, I just wanted to put this together as a basic introduction to explain the process that I go through for my projects, the key steps, and I guess just talk about why I follow the steps that I do. I'll follow it up with other videos that go into each of these phases in more detail and provide specific project examples. But hopefully you found this interesting and useful. And if you did, please subscribe, or you can go to the channel and you can find other videos on design and creative thinking. I'll see you in the next one.